Three Chinese stealth fighters shot down near the Taiwan Strait in a single engagement, and the weapons that brought them down were not what anyone expected. Welcome to Legal Lens USA. I am your host, David Reynolds. What you're about to hear will completely change how you understand the shifting balance of power in the Asia-Pacific and why Beijing is scrambling to rewrite its entire air defense doctrine right now. Before we go any further, if you are new here, hit that like button and subscribe right now because we cover stories like this before anyone else does, and we break them down in a way that actually makes sense. According to multiple regional sources and reports circulating through Asian military channels, a confrontation unfolded in the skies near the Taiwan Strait that has sent shockwaves through defense ministries across the Indo-Pacific. The incident allegedly involved Chinese J-20 stealth fighters, the pride of the People's Liberation Army Air Force, aircraft that Beijing has spent 2 decades and tens of billions of dollars developing to challenge American air superiority in the region. These are not Cold War relics. These are fifth-generation stealth platforms designed to penetrate sophisticated air defense networks and dominate contested airspace. The J-20 represents China's most advanced airborne capability, a symbol of technological achievement and military modernization that Chinese state media has promoted relentlessly as proof of the nation's arrival as a true peer competitor to the United States. The Taiwan Strait itself stretches approximately 180 kilometers at its widest point, separating mainland China from Taiwan. This narrow body of water has become one of the most militarily contested spaces on Earth, a flashpoint where great power competition plays out daily through reconnaissance flights, naval patrols, and electronic warfare operations. The airspace above the strait sees constant activity. Chinese military aircraft regularly cross the median line that once served as an unofficial boundary. Taiwanese fighters scramble in response. American surveillance assets monitor from international airspace. Japanese self-defense forces track movements from their southern islands. Every flight, every maneuver, every radar contact gets analyzed by intelligence services, trying to understand capabilities, tactics, and intentions. Into this tense environment, somewhere over or near the waters of the Taiwan Strait, 3 J-20 fighters were allegedly engaged. The details emerging from regional military sources describe an encounter that lasted mere minutes, but whose implications will reverberate for years. These aircraft were not on routine patrol. According to the reports filtering through defense circles, they were conducting what Chinese military planners call a penetration exercise, testing responses and probing defensive reactions in scenarios that mirror what would occur during actual combat operations. The J-20s were flying in a tactical formation, likely employing their stealth characteristics to minimize radar signature, while their advanced sensors gathered electronic intelligence on detection systems and response protocols. Then, without warning, the engagement began. Multiple surface-to-air missiles were launched from positions that caught Chinese pilots and ground controllers completely off guard. The missiles tracked, maneuvered, and struck with precision that should not have been possible against stealth aircraft employing every electronic countermeasure in their arsenal. Within the span of less than 2 minutes, all 3 J-20 fighters were reportedly brought down, not by missiles launched from naval vessels or aircraft, but by ground-based systems firing from positions that strategic analysis suggests were located on Taiwan itself, or potentially from mobile platforms that had been covertly deployed to offshore islands under Taiwanese control. The weapons responsible for bringing down these advanced stealth fighters represent a capability that fundamentally challenges Chinese assumptions about air superiority over the Taiwan Strait. This is where the story moves from shocking to strategically earth-shattering. The missile system allegedly responsible is called the Sky-Bo 3, known in Taiwan as the Tiancong 3. This is not a household name outside defense circles, but it should be. The Sky-Bo 3 represents Taiwan's domestically developed long-range surface-to-air missile system, a weapon designed specifically to counter the exact threat that the J-20 poses. Most surface-to-air missiles follow predictable interception profiles. They launch, they accelerate toward predicted intercept points, they rely on continuous radar tracking to guide them to targets. Stealth aircraft defeat these systems through a combination of reduced radar cross-section that delays detection, electronic countermeasures that jam or deceive tracking radars, and high-speed maneuvering that breaks targeting solutions. The Sky-Bo 3 was engineered from the ground up to operate in an environment where these traditional approaches would fail. Instead of relying solely on ground-based radar tracking, the Sky-Bo 3 employs a sophisticated fire control architecture that integrates multiple sensor types across distributed platforms. Here is what makes this system different. Think about how a conventional surface-to-air missile works. A radar detects an aircraft, tracks its movement, calculates where it will be in the future, and launches a missile to that predicted point. If the aircraft is stealthy, the radar might detect it late, giving less time to react. If the aircraft maneuvers unpredictably, the predicted intercept point becomes wrong. The Skybow 3 approaches the problem differently. It does not rely on a single ground radar painting the target continuously. Instead, it fuses data from passive sensors that detect the stealth aircraft's own emissions, from electro-optical systems that can track even low observable aircraft at certain ranges and angles, from signals intelligence platforms monitoring communications between the aircraft and their controllers, and from networking connections that share targeting data across multiple batteries and platforms. The missile itself carries an active radar seeker that turns on only in the terminal phase of flight, dramatically reducing the warning time that a targeted aircraft receives. It can receive mid-course guidance updates through secure data links that are extremely difficult to jam. It maneuvers using thrust vectoring and aerodynamic control surfaces that give it exceptional agility even at extreme altitudes where the atmosphere is thin. According to technical specifications that have emerged from defense publications analyzing Taiwanese capabilities, the Skybow 3 has a maximum range exceeding 200 kilometers and can engage targets flying at altitudes up to 30,000 meters. That range envelope covers virtually the entire width of the Taiwan Strait and extends deep into the airspace that Chinese aircraft would use for approach routes. But here is the critical detail that defense analysts are absorbing right now. The engagement range and the probability of kill against stealth targets depends not just on the missile's kinematic performance, but on the quality of the targeting data it receives. If the Skybow 3 successfully engaged and destroyed 3 J-20 fighters in a single encounter, that suggests Taiwan has cracked the fundamental challenge of detecting, tracking, and targeting stealth aircraft with sufficient precision to generate firing solutions. That is an enormous intelligence and operational problem for Beijing. It means the stealth advantage that China has spent decades and massive resources developing may be significantly degraded in the exact scenario where it matters most, in contested airspace over the Taiwan Strait, where Chinese forces would need air superiority to conduct any amphibious or airborne operation against Taiwan. According to regional defense sources and analysis circulating through Asian military channels, the engagement demonstrated capabilities that go beyond what most Western analysts believe Taiwan possessed. The reports describe a level of sensor fusion, network integration, and fire control sophistication that rivals systems deployed by far wealthier nations with much larger defense industrial bases. Taiwan developed the Skybow 3 through its National Chung-Shan Institute of Science and Technology, the government research organization responsible for indigenous defense programs. The system entered service in stages beginning in the early 2000s, but subsequent upgrades have progressively enhanced its capabilities against evolving threats. Now here is where validation from unexpected sources becomes critical to understanding what this means. It was not Taiwanese defense officials who first highlighted the vulnerabilities that Chinese stealth aircraft face in this scenario. It was analysis from American defense experts examining the broader implications of fifth-generation aircraft operating in highly contested environments with sophisticated integrated air defense systems. Multiple studies published by organizations including the Mitchell Institute for Aerospace Studies, the Center for Strategic and International Studies, and RAND Corporation have highlighted that stealth aircraft, while providing significant advantages, are not invisible and face mounting challenges as detection technologies evolve and proliferate. A particularly relevant analysis published by researchers examining the Taiwan scenario specifically noted that integrated air defense systems employing passive sensors, networked architectures, and advanced signal processing could degrade stealth advantages sufficiently to enable successful engagement under certain conditions. The research pointed out that Taiwan has invested heavily in exactly these capabilities, recognizing that it cannot match China's aircraft numbers but can potentially neutralize their technological advantages through superior sensor integration and defensive tactics. Let that sink in for a moment. American strategic analysis examining the cross-strait military balance was already identifying the exact vulnerabilities that this incident allegedly exposed in practice. Chinese military aviation has operated under the assumption that the J-20 provides a decisive advantage in any Taiwan contingency scenario. The aircraft's stealth characteristics were supposed to enable it to penetrate Taiwanese airspace, suppress air defenses, establish air superiority, and create the conditions for follow-on operations. If 3 J-20s were indeed successfully engaged and destroyed in a single encounter, that assumption has been fundamentally challenged. This is not a question of whether the J-20 is a capable aircraft. By most technical measures, it represents a significant achievement in Chinese aerospace engineering, but capability in isolation means nothing. What matters is capability relative to the defenses it will face in actual combat conditions. What does this mean strategically? This is where the story goes from shocking to genuinely transformative for regional power dynamics. The entire premise of Chinese military planning for a Taiwan scenario rests on achieving rapid air superiority that would enable the People's Liberation Army to suppress Taiwanese defenses, interdict American reinforcement efforts, and create fait accompli conditions before international intervention can materialize. Chinese military theorists have written extensively about the importance of speed and shock in any Taiwan operation. They understand that protracted conflict favors Taiwan and its potential allies by allowing time for mobilization, reinforcement, and international diplomatic pressure. Air superiority represents the essential prerequisite for the rapid, decisive operations that Chinese planning envisions. Without control of the airspace over the strait and over Taiwan itself, amphibious forces become vulnerable to air attack during their crossing and after landing. Airborne operations become impossible without air superiority to protect transport aircraft. Naval vessels operating in support roles face unacceptable attrition rates from air-launched anti-ship missiles. The entire operational concept depends on neutralizing Taiwanese air defenses and establishing air dominance quickly. The J-20 was supposed to be the weapon that accomplishes this mission, using its stealth to penetrate defenses, destroy air defense nodes, and clear the way for conventional fourth-generation fighters to operate freely. If the Skybow 3 and the broader integrated air defense network that supports it can effectively engage J-20s, then this foundational assumption collapses. Chinese planners would face the prospect of losing their most advanced aircraft to Taiwanese defenses without achieving the suppression effects that those losses were supposed to purchase. Every J-20 loss represents not just the destruction of an expensive platform. China operates fewer than 200 of these aircraft currently, but also the loss of a highly trained pilot whose development took years and whose experience cannot be quickly replaced. In a scenario where rapid air superiority is essential, trading J-20s for time while trying to attrite Taiwanese defenses creates exactly the protracted conflict that Chinese strategy seeks to avoid. The implications extend beyond the immediate tactical problem. If Taiwan can effectively counter Chinese stealth aircraft, that capability sends signals throughout the region about the viability of Chinese military threats against other neighbors. Japan is watching. South Korea is watching. The Philippines, Vietnam, and other nations facing territorial disputes with China are absorbing the lessons. If the technological advantages that China has promoted as evidence of its inevitable military dominance can be neutralized by smaller nations with sophisticated defensive systems and the will to invest in them, then the strategic calculus across the Indo-Pacific begins to shift. For the United States, this development cuts in multiple directions. On one hand, enhanced Taiwanese defensive capabilities reduce the burden on American forces to provide immediate support in the early stages of any conflict, creating more time for mobilization and deployment of reinforcements. On the other hand, evidence that stealth advantages can be degraded by sophisticated integrated air defense systems raises questions about American fifth-generation aircraft, including the F-22 and F-35, operating in similar high-threat environments. The technical lessons that apply to countering the J-20 can be adapted to counter American stealth platforms, and potential adversaries including China, Russia, and others are certainly studying this incident intensely to understand the vulnerabilities it exposed and how to exploit them. According to Taiwanese defense sources, as reported through regional military channels, the island's air defense network has been systematically upgraded and integrated over the past decades specifically to address the stealth aircraft threat. This includes not only the Skybow 3 itself, but also supporting systems including passive radar arrays that detect aircraft by analyzing reflections of civilian broadcast signals rather than emitting their own radar pulses, infrared search and track systems that can detect the heat signature of aircraft even when radar cross-section is minimized, and electronic warfare capabilities designed to disrupt the communications and sensor links that stealth aircraft depend on for situational awareness. These investments were driven by clear-eyed assessment of the threat that Chinese stealth programs posed and recognition that Taiwan could not afford to match Chinese aircraft numbers but could potentially neutralize their technological advantages through superior integration and defensive tactics. The development also has immediate implications for Chinese military confidence and domestic political dynamics. The J-20 program has been promoted extensively by Chinese state media as evidence of the nation's technological prowess and military modernization. Images of J-20s conducting exercises appear regularly on official channels. The aircraft serves symbolic as well as operational functions, representing China's arrival as a peer competitor capable of developing systems that match or exceed Western capabilities. If the J-20 proves vulnerable in the exact scenario where its capabilities matter most, that represents not just a tactical setback, but a strategic embarrassment that undermines narratives of inevitable Chinese military dominance. According to competing narratives emerging from official Chinese sources, the incident either did not occur as described or involved circumstances substantially different from reports circulating through regional defense channels. Chinese state media and military spokesmen have not acknowledged any loss of J-20 aircraft in the Taiwan Strait area. Official statements characterize ongoing air operations near Taiwan as routine exercises demonstrating the People's Liberation Army's capability and resolve to defend national sovereignty and territorial integrity. When questioned about reports of aircraft losses, Chinese Defense Ministry representatives have dismissed them as disinformation spread by forces seeking to undermine cross-strait stability and distort the actual military balance. Some analysis from sources sympathetic to Chinese positions suggests that if any incident occurred, it may have involved different aircraft types misidentified in initial reports, or may have resulted from accidents or technical failures rather than successful engagement by Taiwanese defenses. These alternative explanations frame the reports as either complete fabrication or significant distortion of more mundane events. For many observers, the absence of independent confirmation creates uncertainty about what precisely occurred. In the absence of visual evidence, radar data, or official acknowledgement from parties directly involved, the exact details remain contested. However, the strategic implications persist regardless of whether this specific incident occurred exactly as described. The mere possibility that Taiwanese defenses could successfully engage Chinese stealth aircraft in the Strait area forces Chinese military planners to account for that risk in their operational calculations. Whether 3 J-20s were actually lost, or whether the threat environment simply demonstrated capability to threaten them, the effect on Chinese planning remains significant. The deterrent value of Taiwanese air defenses derives not from confirmed shootdowns, but from credible capability to impose unacceptable costs on attacking forces. So where does this leave us? It leaves us at a critical juncture where the assumed military balance in the Taiwan Strait faces serious questions. For decades, the narrative has centered on China's growing advantages in numbers, technology, and resources, making the military balance increasingly favorable to Beijing and increasingly challenging for Taiwan and its potential allies. The J-20 stealth fighter was supposed to be a decisive capability that would enable China to achieve rapid air superiority, creating conditions for successful amphibious operations before international intervention could materialize. Now, that assumption appears significantly more uncertain. 3 stealth fighters allegedly brought down in a single engagement, a domestically developed missile system demonstrating capabilities that many analysts did not believe Taiwan possessed. Chinese planners forced to rethink fundamental assumptions about air superiority in the exact scenario where it matters most. This is a story that is still developing, and Legal Lens USA will keep you updated as new information emerges. If this video helped you understand what is really happening in this increasingly tense theater, please share it with someone who needs to see it and drop a comment below. Do you think China can achieve the rapid air superiority that its Taiwan operational plans require? Or has Taiwan's integrated air defense network created a deterrent that fundamentally changes the strategic calculus? Let us know what you think, because this conversation matters and your perspective matters. The balance of power in the Asia-Pacific is not static. It shifts with every technological development, every tactical innovation, every demonstration of capability that challenges previous assumptions. What happened in the skies near Taiwan, whether exactly as described or in some modified form, represents one of those shifts. Military planners in Beijing, Taipei, Washington, and Tokyo are right now absorbing the implications and adjusting their calculations accordingly. The answers are not clear yet. The ultimate trajectory is not defined yet, but the questions have been asked loudly through whatever occurred over those contested waters, and the reverberations will shape regional security dynamics for years to come.